All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is, and right here, right now, we are actually live in full effect, and we have a phenomenal veteran hip-hop artist right here on the line. We got the amazing King Kash right here, right now, man. How are you doing this evening?
Man, I'm doing amazing, man. I'm just enjoying my day. I mean, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing the same thing as well, man. It's that midweek, man, so we're almost at Friday, man. We're almost at the weekend, man, so I really can't complain.
Yeah, it's almost party time. It's time for the weekend to hit and to relax and kick back and soak up the good energy. I mean,
But King, I know you're a busy guy, man. I don't want to take too much time away from your evening, so I'm going to dive right into this, man. But I want to take you back to the beginning of your amazing career this far, and I have to ask, man, what originally just inspired you to actually become such an amazing hip hop artist that you are today?
oh man, I would say what inspired me back then. So when I was in school, I was I was kind of a knucklehead when I was in school. So I didn't really pay attention to a lot of the classes I couldn't get. So one of my favorite classes when I was in school was always English and writing. Like they used to have us write stories as kids and adolescents and try to come up with the best imaginative type of stories, like the writing courses and things like that. So I kind of fell in love with writing, and I started doing poetry initially when I was growing up, and I won a few contests and things like that, school-wise. But the poetry was something that I kind of just used as a therapy to get things off of my mind at that age because I was going through a lot. And then shortly after that, I would say what influenced me the most was probably just the music in itself. I was always told, about my parents and things like that, like, you got all these bad grades, but you can remember every word to a hip hop song, like that type of deal. So I think the first song that I ever heard was "Back to the Hotel," and that was like one of the first songs that I heard over, as a young kid that kind of inspired me to want to rap and to want to actually do music. I fell in love with the way that things were done and shit like that. So for the most part, man, it was kind of something that just came into fruition. I started with poetry, and then eventually I ended up meeting a friend of mine in high school that was a little bit older than me that had a setup at his house, which was like consisted of like a laptop and a little $10 Target mic. And from there, like we actually recorded songs. So, at that point the songs were trash. It was just horrible. But at that point, like you're making music, so we thought that was the best thing in the world. And from there, man, it just continued on from there. You know what I'm saying?
And when you said a few moments ago about how like you started off doing poetry at a young age, did you ever take those poetry writings and actually transform them actually into your any of your songs today, or did you just kind of leave your poetry separate?
I would say that the poetry was, I kind of fell back from it. I haven't wrote poetry in a long time, probably since I was like a teenager. Um, I think my poetry kind of transformed over time into the music. So music became my poetry. It went from just, writing poetry and trying to put things together just to kind of, and there's no music, no nothing. At that time, I had no clue that you could actually do that on your own. So eventually, after I wrote a couple songs, my whole life kind of just transformed from there. And music's always been one of the biggest, if not the leading factor in my life that's kept me out of jail and from doing stupid shit. It's always been a major part of my life and always will be. I mean,
And also as well, on June 9th of 2014, you were actually featured on Icon's album titled ISO on the song Reason. I was wondering, how did you guys originally get connected? And of course, what was it like just working alongside Icon on that particular project?
so it's actually crazy. Not to, I do a lot of interviews, so it's kind of like a story that I go through. It's really crazy now to see where we're all at. ISO, me, Tabo, everybody that's in that situation. I actually met ISO through a homie of mine, which is Nitro. Back then, we were, we were doing things. ISO was signed to Brain Sick at that moment, and he was signed to Twisted Insane. And I had no clue about any of that. I didn't even know who ISO was, nor any of the other Brain Sick members at that moment. I just know about Twisted Insane because I think in that time period I was living in San Diego, and that's where Twisted Insane's hometown is. So I kind of got hip to his music, and I started fucking with it. And I believe it was a U-string that he was doing at that time, and he said he was looking for artists. So I was feeling myself. I had just shot my first video, so I put it in the comment section. I was like, I'm gonna be the next person to sign to Brain Sick Music. And my homie Nitro was actually doing a street team. He was like a street team lead for him, and we was putting together all his merchandise and logos and everything like that. And he actually commented. He was like, well, I do a lot of work with Twisted Insane. He was like, you got one chance. Send me your best song. If it's good, then I'll pass it on. And if it's not, then it is what it is. And I actually sent him the video that I had just shot. And from there, we connected on Facebook. We talked, and then he had mentioned ISO and said that he was part of that gang, and he had started that's his team, and they had a mutual connection, and he was going to pass it on to him, and they wanted to work and possibly, put me on the team. So I think probably like 2 or 3 days later, I got a call from ISO, and kind of reaffirming what Nitro was talking about at that point. He's like, yeah, man, like you tight as fuck, my nigga. He's like, I want to fuck with you, and I think you have the same aspirations and goals that we all do, and I want you to be a part of the team. So of course, I went with it, and listening to ISO's music back then, it was like I was unaware, but even back then, when I didn't really know ISO at that moment, I always told him, man, like, you have a different type of resonation. Like, your music hits harder than, we all know where we're at power level wise as artists and musically and with our artistry. And I'm like, man, your music, it resonates and it hits harder, and the feel is a lot different, man. Like, you have this glow about you. And shortly after that is when he did the Icon album. And he's like, man, I got the song Reason for you, and I think you'd be really dope on it, man. And he sent it over, and I sent my verse back, and then from there it was kind of like a rap.
And also on November 5th of 2016, you actually released the album Manic under the name Kash. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a little bit more about this earlier released album, and of course, what actually made you decide to transition from Kash to what we now know you as King Kash.
So back then, Kash was my original name when I was releasing music, and I put out the album Maniac, which featured, ISO and a few other artists, and it was my first album, so I was still new to the concept of how to record sonically, so it's better for the listener. And there was just a lot of imperfections on that album, but it was a start, and at that moment, it had been my best work to date. Shortly, me and ISO did, I believe it was 2 shows, December 1st and December 2nd. Shortly after ISO had did Bad Juju with Tech 9, Tech had offered ISO to come out and do 2 shows, kind of just to get the feel and put them in front of the crowd and get people introduced, which I think it was more like an opportunity for ISO to showcase what he could do. And at that moment, he was we had just did a show we opened up for Brother Lynch, I believe, like the month before that. And then we did those 2 shows, Lawrence, Kansas, and Lincoln, Nebraska. And, our biggest shows were, a couple hundred people. Well, for ISO, it's a couple hundred people. Mine was merely probably like 50 at the max. We did those 2 shows, and the the attention and the love that we got back from what we were doing, and mostly ISO, because I was just there in support of my brother. It made Travis and Tech want to give ISO another shot. And shortly before we went on tour with Tech Nine, I was talking to ISO on the phone, and I was like, man, I've been thinking about changing my name. Like, I feel like I need to rebrand myself. He was like, well, why don't you, call yourself like King Pizzo, or like Drop the Pizzo, or do King Kash. And I was like, yeah, King Kash sounds like that. That sounds like the one. And that was probably like a couple weeks before we went on the Planet Tour. So from there, it was like, once I had that name, that's kind of like where I rebranded myself, and kind of my attention and my drive and my lane switch musically of what I was talking about. I was going through a lot at the time, and I was in a very dark period, so that's where you got Maniac. But being around ISO and the type of person that he is, he makes you think. He's a very intellectual type of person. So he makes you think about things that you would never otherwise, if you haven't gone through certain types of things in life, think about. And pretty much from there, after the name King Kash came about, is when I locked it in, and we went on tour, and it just stuck.
And I gotta say as well that one of the songs off that record that I really enjoyed was actually Brains on the Wall featuring Twisted Insane. I found King did a phenomenal production job actually on that particular project.
Yeah, ISO actually, he produced, I want to say, about 75% of the Maniac album. And most of the God of the Dead album as well. So, like, ISO has a different type of sound, and he has his own style that can't really be duplicated or imitated without, everybody knowing where that sound came from. So, I think of it like Eminem and Royce the 5'9". Like, Royce is right up there with Eminem, but that's because he also got to spend so much time around one of the greatest rappers of all time, which in turn made him one of the greatest rappers of all time. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the sensei and the student. You have no choice but to get better and to be sharper with your skills when you're studying this master,
And also, as you mentioned a few moments ago of being able to go on the Planet Tour, I was wondering, could you tell us a bit more about that Tech 9 tour? And of course, man, what was one of your most fondest memories you shared on that tour? Because I do know that you guys traveled all across North America. Like, it was pretty much city after city, like for a good 2 months straight.
Yeah. So I mean, it was crazy. Me being I was born and raised in Sacramento, California. So I'm a Cali baby. I stayed in Southern California as well for a good portion of my life. So I've always been a Cali baby and was big on West Coast music. But when it came to my artistry, I just found myself in a different type of style, in a different type of field than what most West Coast artists are. So I was into the T Nutties, the X-Rated, the Brother Lynches, the various options, E40s, the Mac Dre's. But then once I actually got a hold of text music, and I believe the first song that I heard was Einstein, and a friend of mine was playing. He was a juggalo. He was playing it in his car, and I had never heard it. This is back when I was still like a teenager. So flash forward from that point, after hearing his music and becoming a fan, like I kind of, I think most people in that chopper type of style with music, like there's only so many people that you could learn from, the Bone Thugs and Harmonies, the Twisters, the Tech Nines. I mean, like it's so many people out there to gain inspiration from, but there was only a few like leading artists that kind of did that type of style, and for me it was Tech Nine. That's what I latched on to pretty heavy. So I kind of garnered my style to chopping and everything by being a super fan of what he does and what he was capable of. But once I got the news that we were going to be going on tour with Tech Nine and Chris Calico and Joey Cool, man, it was eye opening. As a young kid from California that's never been out of California other than being in Denver, to go 2.5 months on the road every day, a new show, a new city, was crazy to me. And one of my most memorable moments was, I'd have to say Boston was, forgot what the date was, because it was just recently. Dementia had just gone live, so we called it Dementia Day. And it was in Boston, Massachusetts. It was sold out, like 5,000 people. And, you know, I got to celebrate with my brother for, now at this day, one of his biggest albums to date, next to, you know, his most recent. It was an amazing time, man, and also being on tour with the people that I was learning from as a student, that didn't even think that that was possible, to reach out or be next to them, or, you know, go to Strangeland, or, you know, be able to have these opportunities that I'm blessed to be a part of, was just a major note in my book, man. I couldn't put it any other way.
And also as well, you actually released another phenomenal album on February 7th of 2020 titled God of the Dead. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this particular album, and of course, where can we actually buy or stream ourselves a copy of it today?
So God of the Dead, I do my albums based off of periods of my life. So Maniac was a time where I was young and I was going through a lot, and I didn't really understand how the world worked, so I was very angry and very I had a very jaded outlook at society and the world as it is in a whole. God of the Dead was a transitional period where I had changed my name and I wanted to get away from doing dark music, because, whatever energy you put out into the world is what the universe will give you back. So I wanted to go in a different light. And the God of the Dead name came from, I find that I'm most at peace when I'm sitting in a graveyard, at a cemetery, because, I said it in one of my older songs, is it's peaceful to greet those that consider us equals. You know what I mean? God of the Dead was merely me making a title for, people that are dead now, would look at me and think that I'm a god because I'm still alive, and even through all I've been through, I'm able to do so much, and they didn't get the opportunity, which is not all of their fault on their own, but it was just a way for me to express myself and acknowledge that people that are dead don't get to have any of these opportunities because of their unfortunate passing. So I should take that into mind. And when I'm out here doing things, or I feel, we all have our anxieties, our depressions, and things like that, to always keep a positive outlook on the way that I'm doing things. And God of the Dead is now, it's been available since February 7th, I think, of 2019. It's available everywhere on all digital platforms. It's on YouTube, Apple Music, iTunes. You can go buy it, go stream it. I just dropped a new single off my upcoming album, Unapologetically Me, that should be out in the next couple months. It's called Lonely, and that's also available. And the video is now up and it's streaming on YouTube for any of those that want to go check that out.
And also as well, on April 15th of 2022, you actually released the phenomenal single titled Lonely that I actually am going to be playing immediately following this interview right here on the FM dial. But for the listeners that might not have had the opportunity to hear this song, what can they expect from it when I play it here momentarily?
Oh, man, so Lonely is, I sat with Lonely for so long, it's always been one of my babies. The concept where most people would think, the title Lonely makes people feel like it's going to be something sad or depressing, depending on how people look at the word. So when I made the song Lonely, I was having those similar feelings of, man, I'm kind of like, due to my situation, I'm out here on my own, and I don't have nobody but just myself to rely on. So I was kind of feeling those feelings. So I'm like, I started writing the song, and I heard the beat, and I'm like, man, how can I flip this instead of making it something negative? how can I turn it into a positive? Most people would think that lonely means I'm sad or I'm depressed. When you hear lonely, it's acknowledging, yeah, I am lonely, but I'm more comfortable being this way than being surrounded by a group of people. So it's very gritty. It's very true to self. I like to talk about things that I've done in my life or my past experiences, my traumas, be very open, kind of like a book. But Lonely is one of those songs to where if you're feeling like that or even if you're not feeling like that, it's something that you can vibe to. If you're lonely, the song will make you get out of that type of mindset. And if you just chilling, driving around, or having a good time with your friends, it's still, kind of like a celebration song of, yeah, like, I like being by myself. Most people can't be by themselves or look themselves in the mirror, and I have no problem doing that. But let's celebrate being lonely, being by ourselves and focusing on self, self-help, self-wealth, everything. So it doesn't have to be negative. It all depends on how you look at things, your perspective. Perspective is everything. Some people look at the glass half empty. Some people look at it half full. And it all just depends on the type of person that you are. But I prefer to look at the latter,
But I have to ask, King, what is next for yourself, man? Because I do know you're keeping busy. You're doing music nonstop, and of course touring all over the place. But is there anything we happen to miss during tonight's interview? Anything else you do still want to talk about or promote? Well, we still got you here live on 97.7 FM this evening.
Man, like I said, I got Unapologetically Me, my third LP solo album coming out in the next couple months. That's my biggest project to date. Of course, we're going to do a tour for it. I believe I have a couple more shows out here in Denver. There's a show with Joey Cool that we're supposed to do here soon. I got the King ISO featuring myself. The I'm Okay video is on the way for all the fans that's been watching and paying attention and supporting. And everything is up, man. I'm enjoying life. I don't have nothing to complain about. And I appreciate all the people that support me or even support anybody that does this type of field of business. It's not easy, but if it was, everybody would be doing it,
And also, King, this is the time in the interview quickly that I give a chance for the individual that does slide into the radio station airwaves, just a chance to give, shout-outs to whomever they want to give shout-outs to, but most of all, your social media handles. That way our listeners can follow you and stay updated on everything King Kash if they're not already doing so.
So you can find me on Facebook. It's King Kash, KING KASH. You can find me on Instagram, The Real King Kash. That's the with an A. REALKINGKASH on Instagram. I have a Snapchat. You can follow me on Twitter as well. The Real King Kash. Everything is all the same. So I made it pretty easy for people to find me.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Kash, thank you so much, man, for just giving us a bit of your time here this evening and sliding in to the Canadian FM dial, man. It definitely was an honor to be able to chop it up with you this evening, and hopefully down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon, man. But for now, definitely have yourself a phenomenal Thursday night.
Man, I appreciate you for everything, and I appreciate you and the listeners for tuning in and giving me a chance to, talk about who I am as a person. And I want to just say I thank you for the opportunity to be on live and on air with you on your radio station. So much love and support. Hope everybody has a good rest of their day. And, positive energy always trumps hate.
I definitely agree, man, and you are most certainly welcome for the opportunity, man. You're always welcome on my radio station airways, man. Thank you so much, King, and definitely have yourself a phenomenal night, man. I'm pretty sure we definitely shall talk soon.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And thank you. You too.